It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing the largest legend in all of dentistry, James R. Glidewell,
Thank
Jim
you so much.
Glidewell. It's just truly amazing. I got to tell you, I always thought of you as Herb Kelleher, who passed away last year.
In the Southwest, yeah.
Southwest Airlines. When I started lecturing airlines, it was for rich people. And the planes were empty and everybody was dressed nicely and it was a rich man's games. And Herb Kelleher said, I'm going to keep one eye on the customer and one eye on cost. And I'm going to use my brain to drive down costs until grandma has the freedom to afford to fly. And when I came out of school, not to throw anybody under a bus, but when I started taking continuing education, I started first at the Pankey Institute. And day one is this lecture, and love the guy, and I understand market segmentation, Mercedes-Benz, all this stuff, but he talked about how you just want to focus on A patients. And Erwin Becker gave this whole presentation about what an A patient was. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I'm from Kansas. I don't have one cousin, nephew, sister, mom. None of us made the A list, the B list. We were all C, D, F list. And I kind of got this icky feeling that American dentistry was trying to make stuff for the rich people. And that's not what America was built on. I mean, Henry Ford said, if you made cars for the classes, you're going to be poor and live with the masses. He says, America is about making stuff to the masses. And you were just hell-bent on keeping your eye on cost so that the average working man could save his tooth. And so it was love at first sight for me and you.
Speaking of Henry Ford, he always says it's not what you can get for $1, but what you can give for $1. In other words, you want to give the most value for $1 always. And I've always believed in that. And then when I found out that only maybe 50% of the American public kind of really visit a dentist, I says, why is that? Well, it's cost prohibitive. And so how can we enlarge that marketplace? And so that's what I've always done. In fact, I think all of my employees will tell you that every day I come to work is how do I drive down the cost of what we do? And we've been able to drive down cost immeasurably because we've always been, I'm not going to say low cost, I always use the term, hey, we're kind of a Walmart. And my employees always fight me. They say, no, we're Costco, kind of a classy thing called Costco. And I said, maybe so. But the real thing is that we're going to keep dropping the prices on products as we get more and more efficient at producing them, because we're not really trying to put money in our pocket. We're trying to lower the cost of dentistry so all patients, more patients, can afford dentistry. And that's really it in a nutshell.
It's funny you said Henry Ford, it's not what you can get for $1, it's what you can get for $1. The only other person I ever heard say that in my whole life was Ken Austin of ADEC, who passed away last year, and his wife Joanne. And he was a big Henry Ford deal. And what he liked about Henry Ford is that if you're driving a Model T and it broke down, you could go find a 20-year-old Model T in somebody's creek and ditch, and the same part would work.
Parts interchangeable.
And he was so mostly motivated on those ADEC chairs that the whole chair only once did he have to change the internal structure, and that was because as Americans got bigger and bigger and heavier, you lean back and fall over. So he had to put a much bigger base. But he was like you, a detail for manufacturing, just totally manufacturing. But I want you to start with the original story, because you're born in Vegas.
I was born in Las Vegas. About 4 years of old, my father was having a hard time supporting my sister and I. So he sent me to Kentucky to live with my grandparents. And I lived on a subsistence farm in southern Kentucky. And I went to school. And
What's a subsistence farm?
It's where you grow your own vegetables out back, and you have 2 pigs. Usually you slaughter 2 pigs and you have a smokehouse, no indoor plumbing and no water, no electricity. This is back in 1950 through 55. The TVA had not kicked electric power up into the southern part of Kentucky I was in until 1957.
After the Tennessee Valley Authority?
Tennessee Valley Authority got the power up there about 1957. But we had no electricity. We just had kerosene lamps. And there was some kind of a little device we used to crank on. We could get a radio to work so we could hear Amos and Andy on the radio or something, And it was really quite You know, I think that when you're a kid, you think you're well off. Of course, we didn't have a car or anything like that, but I felt like we were fine. We had a little tobacco subsidy, which everybody in the South has, and so we had just a little bit of money. But you know, by the time I was 10 years old, I returned to Las Vegas, where I was born, and continued on through regular school. And so it was kind of a simple upbringing. I was a terrible student in school. I mean, I wasn't the bottom of my class, but I was 328 out of 331 out of Las Vegas High School.
328 out of 331?
Yeah, and I always regret that I worked so hard. I should have worked not quite so hard. It could have been 331. But at that point, right after high school, I just turned 18 at the same time, and I joined the Navy, and I went to Vietnam, basically, and came back in July 1965 with a whole new outlook on life. You know, the military in Vietnam had a chance to kind of shape you somewhat. And so I went, and I didn't have a lot of parentage. My parents were gone most all the time, and so I kind of raised myself. My father was a railroader, and he was gone 3 days at a time, and my mother was an accomplished gambler and whatnot in Las Vegas. I didn't see her very often either, my stepmother, but nice lady. So coming back from Vietnam, I went to work for Delta and Delta Airlines and ramp fueling airplanes, and then I went to become an insurance agent. The day I turned 21, I took the test, became an insurance agent, and then within about a month or something, I sold an insurance policy to a dental technician named Rex Frainer, who will always be in my heart, high school buddy. And he told me all about what he was doing, and I just thought it looked like an honest business, something you make with your hands and you get paid for it, you know. And I didn't really like contracts. I didn't want signing contracts, I wasn't going to make a living signing contracts, which was the insurance business. So I right away looked at, and I was able to go to Orange Coast College in California here, in Costa Mesa, on the GI Bill. So I got $175 a month to go to school. Got a job at Sears and Roebuck selling suits. Worked my way through school for about a year, and then I got a job in a dental lab for a few months. Then I went to work for a dentist named Bill Stanley in Orange. We were in Santa Ana. And
Stanley?
Bill Stanley was a dentist at USC.
Does he have a kid named Stanley, a young guy?
No.
There's a famous Kyle Stanley today.
Oh, yeah. And no, yeah, I know what you mean. No. He's not a golfer. You're thinking about Kyle Stanley, the golfer, aren't you? Yeah. Bill was a tough, run-up guy. He was from Tennessee. He had the same background I did, and when I met him, I just loved the guy. And I worked for him for about a year and a half, but he worked his way through dental school, USC, as a dental technician. So he really taught me the business, even when I went to a school. I was.
So you went to the school.
I went to the school,
is it still
but
there?
they call the school. No, it's not. It closed 10 years later, maybe.
Yeah.
There wasn't any jobs for technicians. You know, you go to school, you get out, and you still couldn't find a job. So finally they realized it wasn't working. So then Bill taught me everything I know, and then one day he came to me and he said, "By the way, we've got to get out of here because I haven't been able to pay the rent." And I said, "Well, how much time have we got?" He said, "Oh, 10, 15 minutes." So that brings us where we are today. It's 50 years of being in business, because Bill said, "We got to go." I said, "Where are we going to go?" And Bill says, "There's no we in this. I'm going to LA to get a job, and I don't know where you're going." So I was kind of thrown out on the street. He's a dear friend of mine, by the way. We are absolutely close friends.
So let's go back to that decision. The dental schools, they all added hygiene departments and closed down their Crown and Bridge deals. And so I knew labs. So I was born and raised in Kansas, went to Creighton and Nebraska, and these little Crown and Bridge labs would say, "Well, I've had an ad in the local newspaper for 6 months for a porcelain stacker."
Right. Yeah.
But they quit training them. What do you think of that decision? Why did dental schools add hygienist and take away labs? Because when I lectured in Hong Kong, not very long ago, they had a dental school and a Crown and Bridge deal in there, and the dental laboratory class was, I think, 400, and the dentist class was 100, and they didn't even have hygienist. So why is China?
I think when a dentist opens an office in the United States, he's going to need an assistant, and he can have a hygienist on staff. but doesn't necessarily have a dental technician. They always use some outside lab. So that's kind of outside their immediate focus when they're trying to run their own little business and everything. So I think we were able to train people to be technicians. It wasn't a very organized training method. When I went to school, I was taught dental technology, ceramics by a denture technician, because the school that hired a denture technician, setup guy to teach these classes. They didn't know. They said, "You're a dental technician?" "Sure." Well, teach this class on, and the guy, "How do you make a crown?" "I don't know, but I can set up a denture." But anyway, so I realized early on I was going to have to teach myself. Then I met the dentist, Bill Stanley, and boy, he knew what he was doing. He told me about contacts and occlusion and how to trim margins and do it right, and so I was pretty good at it. And I also taught myself ceramics, because in 1968, 69, there were no real ceramists in Orange County. Maybe it was 4 or 5. They came several hundred, but there was only 4 or 5 at that time. So I went to a class one time where they were selling instruments. I just watched this guy pack porcelain, and I thought, I can do that. I went home and made every mistake there was, but I eventually became good at it.
I love the clarity in what you said, is you wanted to have an honest work and an honest living, and an honest work is working with your hands.
Yes.
If you're a welder, you're a dentist, you're a surgeon.
Absolutely.
And so much of society has gone to just sitting at a computer, contracts, writing, and it scares me that we live in a country that no one wants to make anything. No one wants to work in their hands. They think they're all going to buy it from another country.
That's right.
And that they're going to work with their hands and make something, and we're just going to give them a piece of paper, and they're going to be good with that. And that looks very short-sighted.
Well, I've always, my Vietnam experience was interesting in that I came home uninjured except in my head, and I had lost 2 or 3 of my high school buddies over in Vietnam. Not in where I was at, but I got home and, hey, where's Jerry? Where's Joe? And I decided that they didn't have the opportunities going forward that I was going to have, and that I would work on their behalf. It's kind of hard to understand how my brain works. I get emotional about it. Sometimes it's hard to talk about, but they weren't here anymore, and yet I was. So why not work as hard as I possibly can? And even today, as I sit here, I'm 74 years old. 50 years, started my company 24, 50 years, and I'm 74. I could have quit many years ago. It certainly has nothing to do with money. But I remember my commitment to the people in Vietnam that didn't come home, the commitment to employees. When the first girl walked into my office who was an employee, I had my little dental lab, and I needed somebody from my class to come and help me. She walked in, and I realized that I was responsible for her career, that she would look to me as the boss, and she was going to have a career at my little dental lab. And I thought, my gosh, that's a heavy burden. It's a heavy burden to say, I'm now responsible for her needs. And as you can see today, here we sit here today, and I have 5,000 people with needs. And that's why I can't even retire now. I worry every day I'm going to screw up. That I'm coming to work, I've got to keep building this for them, for these cameramen and everybody that works in our company. I have to keep going. And I worry, Herb Kelleher and Mr. Austin, I worry, I know what happened to them. They ran out of time. And I am at, my age too. I worry that I don't have enough time to accomplish all the things I think need to be done for dentistry.
Is your Vietnam experience also why there's a lot of Vietnamese people working in Glidewell Laboratory?
Yeah, I would think so, to a degree. We live, by the way, in an area around here where there's many ethnicities, and we have at this company 68 different ethnic backgrounds. When this afternoon I'll show you on the wall, we have a wall of flags that are at a building, and we have 68 flags on that wall. But I felt over here that they were not respected enough, and that I thought I would take care of that community, and I've done a pretty good job. Because I think we have, several hundred Vietnamese working in the company.
That is amazing. So when I got out of school, it's kind of weird because the fillings were silver fillings, and so they were half mercury. The other half was silver, zinc, copper, and tin, all antibacterial stuff, and they lasted forever, and they were cheap. And the gold, something about the gold, bacteria just don't like to live under that, high energy
An
gold.
open margin seems to last forever.
I have patients in Phoenix that have gold foils where you can see loops through them on 80-year-old women, and you can see, and there's no decay.
No decay, yeah.
And then this, the cosmetic revolution came along and said, those 38-year long-lasting, low-cost silver fillings, I want that to be replaced with cheap, white, inert plastic. And that crown, I want it to, it just looks is the only thing that matters. We've always called the aesthetic health compromise. I mean, and you would say to them, do you want a silver filling that'll last 38 years for 100? Or do you want a white plastic tooth-colored one for 200 that'll last 7 years? And they say, I'll take the white.
Always, yeah.
It's like, so what are, do you think that someday something will happen to that crown that will be like a gold crown to where it will, things won't want to live underneath it. We talk about bridge like we're a mechanical engineer, but we're really biologists.
Mm-hmm.
You build a barn and you tell them every day I want you to wash and wax the barn and you take care of the barn. But at the end of the day, termites are going to eat the whole barn.
Right, yeah.
Gold and amalgam, termites.
They've proven their place.
They stop biology invasion. Do you think the tooth-colored crown will ever do that?
Maybe not to that degree, but we're only into zirconia about 10 years, we're 12 years into zirconia now. And so far we've seen, incredible strength. They just don't break. But as far as the biology going on there, I really don't know. I can't say. Haven't seen any negatives at all, but I can't say I've seen any negatives whatsoever. But the one thing that is a dental laboratory, we came up with zirconia because all we saw the vendors handing us was more and more expensive white filling materials. When lava came out from 3M, it was a very nice product and everything, but just a coping of materials and a coping were $60 for us. And we used to put $1 worth of Ceramco porcelain on a crown. Now all of a sudden we got a $60 coping. And they were selling like crazy and people are buying into the concept that you need this product and all that. But we laboratory, all of a sudden our lab fees started going up and up and up as vendors wanted to get more and more into that lab fee. And so I decided, and if you'll look around it today when I show you this through this place, we make almost all of our own materials. We make our own lithium silicate materials. We make our own zirconia here. We make our own composite materials here. We don't do powdered metal. We used to, but we don't make powdered metal for selective laser centering of copings, whatnot. But we do basically build almost everything here. We build our own milling machines. I'll show you milling machines.
So why do so many companies? It's like they know they are going to make something more expensive for less people.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you look at the winners, who's the number one airline? Southwest, Walmart, Costco, number one furniture, IKEA. Why is it so obvious that the person who keeps one eye on the customer and one eye on cost and uses their brain to drive down costs so their customer can afford the freedom to buy your product, why are guys like you, why is that, why does everyone not understand that?
We're a vertically integrated company, and we know that if we can save money on materials, we can lower the invoice. Therefore, we get more market share. And that's really what's happened at Walmart, Costco, and these different companies, these big box places. The new guys coming into the dentistry, and I could say even like, Smile Club Direct, Bite, there's several of them out there that are, in the invisible brace business today. Most of them are venture capital based. They're backed by VC guys and they've got an exit strategy. And it says, we're going to hit our gold mine here in 2 years or 3 years, we've got a way out. I don't see a way out. What I do is I don't see any way out of what we're doing. We have to continue growing, making it better all the time, making it less expensive all the time. And as people will tell you about me, when they ask me what my exit strategy is, I say it's death.
It's a pine box.
It's a pine box. That's how I get out. I got no venture capital guys saying, hey, come on, let's speed it up here. I need to get out of this thing. No, we don't have that. And we have a continuity program going on here at the company where people will back me when I'm gone. But I'm a strategic planner more than anything else anymore. Actually, you won't believe this, but I haven't made a crown in a few years. But
And I just got text. I have to see patients when I get back home.
But by being vertically integrated, our costs are extremely low. I mean, I buy materials probably 30% of what it costs a dental lab to buy
vertically
materials.
integrated. A lot of my listeners.
Well,
a
vertically
quarter of them are
integrated
still in dental
means
school.
like you're sitting here in a studio today with all my really expensive camera gear, and it all belongs to Glidewell Laboratories. So we are shooting our own videos. We don't go out and pay somebody, $1,500 an hour to come in and do video for us. We're here all the time. And the reason I do that is because I know if you have a tool, you'll use it more often than if you rent it. If you start to rent things and everybody says, oh, you just rent that stuff, you don't need it. It's like our real estate. We own most all of our, you know that we have almost 1 million square foot of real estate we either own, it is a million, we either own probably 80% of it or we rent the rest. And the reason I wanted to own the real estate is because if I need to change walls in our business, we all got plumbing everywhere, electrical, and you go into a standard business office and you ask the landlord, can we drill a hole here and put a pipe in here? As you know, in dentistry, we're putting pipes everywhere and air compressors.
To put that in perspective, the Pentagon is 1 million square feet.
Yeah,
So
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Yeah, this building here this building's 75,000 feet. And then you go over here to our other campus and there's 100,000, 100,000, 251,000, 100,000. We'll show you 20 some acres over there, right across from the airport here that we own. That's a lot of our stuff. Now we also have offices in South America and whatnot. We're buying a building in Mexico City right now too, because we really want to control our destiny. We had an office in Las Vegas that my son-in-law and my daughter run up there in Las Vegas, and we were asking permission to throw a pipe in the floor, for a drain, and it's not going to happen. And yet we really needed it, so I went and bought another building.
Or
well,
government, or?
No, the landlords just don't want you to cut the floor or make any changes to the building, and they have the right to do that.
Huh.
All of a sudden, I need that though for
Now you used to have a place in
business.
Costa Rica. You used
Still
to take
do.
your boat down there.
From
From here to there, you'd sail.
Yeah, but I've never been to my office in Costa Rica.
You never been there?
No. I've never been to my office in Tijuana or Mexico City or Colombia or Chile. I've been to the office in Las Vegas because my daughter's there sometimes. But no, I don't visit my offices because I tell them what I think how a business should be run. But if I show up all the time, they expect me to make the decisions. Oh, well, Jim's coming, he'll make that decision. So if I just stay away, they make their own decisions.
One question about your customer, the dentist, private equity. A lot of the kids that are listening right now, a quarter of them are in dental school and they're all under 30. Send me an email, howard@dentaltown.com, and tell me where you're from, what country. But a lot of them say, they look at two old guys like us, they say, Howard and Jim, when you guys were little, all the pharmacists owned their own business. Now they're all work at CVS and Walmart. They see Heartland, they see Pacific, they see Bob Fontana with Aspen, all of them now coming up on 1,000 offices, and they say, hey, when they're our age, is private independent dentists gone? Are we all going to be working at McDentals?
I have a feeling that McDental is what's coming. Also, when they get out of school, it takes a while to get your maturity together, and become a real journeyman at this business. And I think Aspen, Pacific, Heartland, they all perform a pretty good service. I think that they're a good training ground. Clear choice, all of them.
So you think that will? So how?
Yeah, it's changed, hasn't it? I mean,
what percent is it now, and what do you think it'll be at 10, 20, 30 years? Or this is your 50th anniversary. What will it be 50 years from now?
50 years from now, it's going to be, I'm going to think it's going to be 25% independent practices in small rural areas, and all the cityfied areas are going to be McDental offices. That's a personal
in 50
opinion.
Years?
Yeah.
75, 25?
Yeah, I think you're going to have some outlying areas out there where there's, the population density is going to be less than 1,000 in, say, 25-mile radius. And you're going to have one or two little offices in that area. But
and why do you what is your intuition that makes you think that That's
Well,
the way
it's
it'll go.
from we work for a lot of small town dentists today, so we're looking at. I wonder why these guys send us work. Well, they don't have a dental lab around because there's only 2 of them in 100 miles.
So I want to go to chairside milling. It came out. It was the CAD cam, and of course, it was a $140,000 machine. I mean, Patterson's always done this. I remember when I got out of school, I bought the first intro camera as a Fuji cam. It was $38,000. It wasn't even 3 or 4 years, and other people were selling it for $10,000.
Yeah.
So they came out with their CAD cam. It was their CAD cam. It was $145,000, and I'd be lecturing in other countries and where you could see them in Germany and Asia for half that price. But the end of the day, it didn't really seem to take off. I mean, the numbers I see, only about 12% of dentists are using the Zirconia CAD cam to chairside milling. So if 12% are using it, means 88% aren't.
No, not, yeah.
And when other things came out, like when radiology came out, everybody got an X-ray machine. Some technologies, really spread fast. So what was your thoughts on CAD cam, Zirconia CAD cam, and why did it
Yeah, when
not really take
back
off?
in the late 70s, I had the opportunity to run into Francois Duray from France, and he came over here to USC, and gosh darn, I can't remember the gentleman's name out here, the dentist they tied up with, but they're going around doing seminars on how to use CAD cam to machine gold crowns. And it was falling on deaf ears a lot because it was way, way before its time. But I still, to this day, I think of Francois Duray as being the father of CAD cam dentistry. And he has a system out right now, I understand, but I don't really know the name of it, truthfully. I've forgotten right now because there's about 8 or 10 out there competing with cameras and whatnot. And the lawsuits are flying back and forth, But so I've always been interested in it. And I truthfully, when it first came out, I said, no way, this can't be done. So I also said the same thing with the fax machine, by the way. A guy came in one time trying to sell me a fax machine. I said, that is a really ridiculous idea. Within about 4 years, it was all over the United States. And but I wouldn't change my mind. I'm seldom right, but never in doubt. So, but I think when I first saw it come out, I thought, well, something will come of it. And then it picked up, Zirconia did a pretty good job of bringing it out. And for those that were liked the idea, it was great. The problem that I saw with it, and I've still seen with it, is that there's a lot of tissue in the mouth that hangs over margins, and the intraoral scanners can only see what it can see. And so then to use the tool, sometimes you have to use an electrosurge to open up the field so that you can actually see the margins. And I thought, wow, you got to do surgery to use a tool. And I thought, that's kind of a crazy thing. So I really think as much as I like CAD cam, and obviously I'm in it, Glidewell IO system, but there's a big market out there still for polyvinyl siloxane. It'll be around a long time. I'm positive of it.
Well, I'm so you remember Jim Miles, the CEO of Dentsply?
Sure.
Love that guy. He had the biggest boat on Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah,
Did you know that?
yeah.
His wife was from Puerto Rico, so he bought a boat that could literally go from Chesapeake Bay to Puerto Rico.
All the way to Puerto
see his
Rico, yeah.
mother-in-law. And he said, I asked him one day at dinner, I said, what's the greatest thing about dentistry? And he goes, dentists are so brand loyal. He said, he said, they got so many things going wrong that if something works, they're not changing that.
Never change it.
And I think about that. I started out on Impergum when it was made in Germany. And now it's bought by 3. I'm still, 32 years later, I'm still using Impergum. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, the brand loyalty. I think a dentist running a practice has so many decision points. There's so many things that he has to stay loyal to that, and he's moving on to something else. I mean, you don't get bored in dentistry. You get overwhelmed, I think. Yeah. And so I think that's why then there's the innovative guys that want to try the thing like, the 12% that are using Zirconia. I just, as you do, I thought it was extremely expensive. I like the idea. I was building machines to do Zirconia milling. And I said, well, I can build a machine that's 6 foot tall to do Zirconia. Why can't I make a small machine that'll do that, do something else? And everybody thought I was having these made in China or something, but I'll show you today. I make everything right here in Irvine, California. And we have, what we have I have like 15 PhDs on staff, another 25 in industrial engineers that design, mechanical engineers that design all these things, minimally 100 software writers that write all the software. We have over 50.
And you've been hiring software writers in Python, which is artificial intelligence language.
Yeah.
And I did a podcast interview with a guy in artificial intelligence who was just mesmerized by what you're doing with artificial intelligence. He was saying that people like me send in an improgram and that you scan it and AI determines. So what are your...
One of the scanning things, when you use polyvinyl siloxane, it'll get down in every little groove. It's just nasty stuff. It just crawls in the sulcus, and it copies everything. But when you're using a visible light scanner, it can't look into undercuts. So what we've done is we've come up with computer tomography, and we're able to see right through an impression, as long as there's not a metal tray in there. We could take a box with an impression in it, scan the entire box without ever opening it, and absolutely give you a detailed copy of the prep all the way down within 20 microns. Now, this is unheard of. 4 or 5 years ago, CT was about 200 microns. Now we've got it down to 20. We're now building our own CT units. Show you one today. We're building our own CT scanners, and we put an impression in there. We have one system downstairs now that we're on this floor, where we at, that we're scanning up to 230 impressions a day right now on this robotic line that we've built.
230 impressions a day?
Yeah, a day, yeah. It's a task we're doing for an outside company, but I'll show you what it looks like, what it's doing right now.
Because how many impressions do you actually receive?
As you know, we get 90,000 a week.
90,000 impressions a week.
Yeah.
Wow. So that
and of course I look at all of them.
Yeah. So on those impressions, some people out there are saying that that if you send in a scan, there's less remakes. Other people are saying if you send in the impression, it's the same. Are there more or less remakes?
I'll tell you, when you send in a scan, an intraoral scan, there are definitely less remakes. We've come to that conclusion, and we do a lot of data analytics here. If you're an average dental lab, and some areas we do the same because we're not completely into CT scanning yet, we have to pour that model. Then we take the model and we die trim it. And every time engineers will talk about error stack up. A stack up error is when you go from one material, then you have to go to another one, then you got to scan it again, and then you go to a casting, and you make even the 3D printers involved. Each one of these, let's say you start off at 20 micron. By the time you get down to the fifth element of this process, it's 100 microns.
And that's called care stack?
It's called stack up error.
Stack up error.
Yeah. In other words, how tight does a screw fit? And if you make 1,000 screws, but you never change the burr that cuts them, they get looser and looser and looser. Okay, so if you add up all these 20 micron errors, after 5 or 6, there's 100 micron error. And we know that we need to have 75 micron margins to put them in the mouth, supposedly. And yet we know there's a lot of 200 micron. Thank God for the cements we're using today. That'll plug any gap in there. But stack up error is the thing you're fighting. So if you give me a polyvinyl siloxane and I use a CT scanner on it, I go right through that impression, and I go directly into a CAD program, design it, CAM program to machine it, and I will give you a product that'll probably be within 20 to 30 microns. I've got a chance because I didn't go through the plaster. Your plaster is good on one day, maybe day 2, the batch of plaster you got is a little different. So the expansion in 24 hours is a little different. Most dental labs don't wait 24 hours to work on a model work. They start working on it within 6 or 8 hours. And in reality, that stuff's supposed to set for 24 hours. So,
is there any scanners, like anything, there's a lot, 3M has TrueDepth, you have Copenhagen, Denmark has 3Shape, you have all kinds of scanners. You have your own IO scanner.
I've worked with the 3Shape guys in the past. They've got their Trios scanner, very, very nice, very, very good scanner, got good color. They've grown from a couple of graduates out of a college over there into 1,500 employees now. Dental labs around the world use their work. The TrueDepth scanner, very nice little scanner, was backed by 3M, and I understand they've sold it off right now. And I haven't
Oh, they
followed
did
much
sell
on
it off?
Yeah, I believe 3M has sold it, the scanner now.
Who do you know who
And
bought
I
it?
don't
Or
know who bought that.
was it you?
No, it wasn't. Wouldn't have been a bad idea. We built our own scanner in San Diego 7, 8 years ago, and I had my head handed to me. It's a difficult business to be in. But because of that scanner that we then bought the software company in Russia that does all of our CAD/CAM software out of Moscow.
So you bought a Russian scanner?
Yeah, well, no, I bought the company, the software developers that write software for basically just dentistry. Their background, they'd worked for another company, an orthodontic company that does clear aligners. I think so. And they had moved, Invisalign moved over to the Ukraine, and Moscow guys were ripe to do what we were doing. And
where would you say Russia's Silicon Valley is?
It's Moscow.
Is it Moscow?
I would think it was Moscow. Yeah.
You think it's Moscow?
Yeah.
A lot of people forget that Russians landed a droid on the moon first. They had the first Sputnik. They had the first dog in space, woman in space.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yuri
it's an
Gagarin.
extremely high-tech country.
Yeah.
They're not low-tech at all.
Not at all. It's kind of like funny. I always think about Minnesota and Michigan and those northern states, how much precision engineering they do up there, even in the United States. They're inside all year. It's cold and snowing.
Yeah, so I want to go back. I want to switch to Invisalign for a second because it's confusing. I fell in love with you when I was in dental school, and I did because you seemed like the only guy that was a champion. I grew up with 5 sisters and a brother in Wichita, Kansas. My dad delivered rainbow bread. Yeah. So we were so poor. I didn't know that that people, I thought only air conditioners were at the store. I was 10 years old before I realized that some people were so rich they had an air conditioner in their house. Yeah. And so here's the orthodontist. They all get $6,500. Invisalign comes out with clear aligners, a great technology, but they work with the orthodontist. The price is still $6,500. And then someone comes out, Smiles Direct Club, and says, you know what? We're going to go for $2,500. And we're going to do that. We're going to bypass the orthodontist. We're going to scan it. We're going to have AI read the impression and just give a $4,000 break to the little guy. And the orthodontist said, absolutely not. And they're trying to, so it's a war. But what do you think of that? Is Smiles Direct trying to help the poor guy, or is this union busting with the rich orthodontist? How do you view this?
I think, you had venture capital backed concept. They went public, their IPO was only 6, 8 weeks, 2 months ago, maybe. It fell precipitously, and I had told people, this is a good little company, actually. I kind of like their concept. But, in like the state of California, your CDA is fighting them tooth and nail to keep them out. They're not fighting them that way. They're saying, well, if you want to go Smile Direct Club, you need to go have an x-ray done by a real dentist first. So they're putting a dentist in the way. So that's going to block it.
I'm sure they didn't say real dentist. I'm sure they said real orthodontist.
A real orthodontist.
A real orthodontist.
You're right. And I understand. The orthodontist, that's how they make a living. And so they're seeing Smile Direct Club is going around them. And from a business standpoint, I think they've got a great business idea. I've even advised some friends of mine, you buy the stock because it's probably going to go. Darn thing went down almost 60%. But even yesterday, it was up 15%.
Right.
So it's coming back. They signed a contract with Walmart. They've expanded into 4 countries in the Far East already. Just announced that on Monday. So I think they're here to stay. But there's also 4 or 5 more right behind them chomping at their bit, Well, I think Smile Direct Club's issue is setting up an office where you do an intraoral scan, and that's where the dental boards are getting upset about that. They're saying, no, you should be going to an orthodontist office and getting an intraoral scan. Well, then why are you going to use Smile Club Direct? Whereas there's 2 or 3 others behind Smile Club Direct, other companies like Byte and whatnot. They're saying you don't have to do that. We're going to send you a home impression kit. So it's direct to consumer, and it's catching on a lot bigger than I thought it would. So it's dropping the price. Is it good for dentistry? It's not good for dentists. It's probably good for patients.
You know, the reason I was not impressed by the stock is simply because we've lived through this rodeo the last 94 to 2000 with like hotels.com and there's no stopping them. And then there was, next thing you knew, there were 50 of them. It's kind of like when Uber came out.
Uber, Lyft,
It's a great idea, but the first competitor that popped up, Lyft, took a quarter of their business.
Exactly.
And you know, 10 years from now, there'll probably be a California Uber Lyft app. There might be one just for people going to Disneyland. I mean, I don't see the protection, but what I'm more curious about is why did you never want to go into clear aligners? You know what I mean? You obviously
Well,
saw
it's a
that.
good question, but I have a relationship with the iTero scanner that is distributed by Invisalign. And because of that, I actually told them I wouldn't get into that business. And I expected that business to become a consumer business where a lot of guys were going to get into it and actually lose money because the pricing is going to be so low that they're going to close a lot of stores. So I think, for example, if you look at the restaurant business, and there's more money lost in the restaurant business than has ever been made in the restaurant business.
Is that right?
Yeah, because people go out and they put a second mortgage on their house and they go open a restaurant and they go broke. Yeah, we got McDonald's and Taco Bell and all those people making money, but at the same time, the average person loses money in the restaurant business. So everybody thinks they can cook, they can open a restaurant. The same thing in the clear aligner business. You know, Invisalign's moved their production facilities a couple, 3 times, and I know of other situations the same way where people were scanning and all of a sudden they're making 3D printed models and they're doing thermoform suck downs and cutting them for them, and then all of a sudden the business moves someplace where there's a better price. Because it is a battle over price, the bottom line.
You know, I've heard you speak. I think the only thing I have in common with you is I think we are both the only 2 people that got to speak 4 times at Cal Lab over the year. Is that
Probably right?
I was told that one time. And
Yeah.
I go, well, I got something in common with Jim. Initially you didn't like the dental implant business. And you kind of were staying out of it.
Not to use any names, but I had a couple of implant specialists who sent cases to me when I was doing implants that were so badly thought out, you know, with 10 implants lower, 10 or 12 on the upper, all going in different directions, no surgical guides. And I thought, if these are the people that are teaching GPs and oral surgeons how to do dentistry, this is going to be full of litigation. So I wrote a letter.
Again? What were the names? It's Dentistry Uncensored. Come on.
And I just said, this is going to fall into hell, you know. And so in retrospect, I was completely wrong again, but never in doubt. I thought it was going to be full of litigation, but you know, nobody dies from things that happen in the mouth. So nobody gets too alarmed, and everybody has a plausible explanation for why the implant fell out. So therefore. But I thought, oh boy, this business looks really nasty to me, and I want to protect my employees, so I want to get out. So I think it was 1991 or 2. I wrote a letter and said I'm going to get out of that industry. And then
that was 91.
I think it was 91, and then in 2000, I'm going to think it was 5, 6, 7. I realized I was wrong, and I decided to get back into it. And some ex-Nobel employees came to work for us and helped me get the thing going. And that's really, today I have I have well over 40 ex-Nobel people working in our company that run our machines, the same machines Nobel used, we use the same. I have 21 of those machines over here.
I've actually never been wrong. I can't even say the word. I've never been wrong. How does the implants look to you now?
Easy, and beautiful.
What would you say I'm always trying to help these dental kindergartners. They're still in school, or they just come out of school, and I'm not making this up. When you go to Cologne, Germany, there's 400 dental implant companies.
Oh, absolutely.
And she's like, she's looking at 2 old dudes saying, come on, she don't have time to look at 400
Well, I think one of the problems you and I see is that dental implants in the United States are controlled by periodontists and oral surgeons. And they're sold on either Straumann or Nobel. And yet behind it, there's 400 implant companies that are making these little screws that cost $10 to make. And somehow they end up being a $400 part when they get to the dental office. And yet dental implants are great. dentistry. A 3-unit bridge. Let's say if you lost a tooth, you know you got compromised dentition on either side of it. Yeah, we're going to put them down and put a 3-unit bridge on there, you know, and it's going to last forever. Good luck on that. You lose a tooth, you throw some bone augmentation in there, put an implant in it. Now you've got a really good, strong restoration. So I'm a total believer in that. I see bridges anymore, and I just kind of think, oh, I know there's stopgap, but I think implants are absolutely.
I see you're working with the implant boy from Ohio.
Oh, Jack Hahn. Well, as you know, Jack Hahn helped develop the replace implant for Nobel.
When I was getting my FAGD, I mean, I took his lectures way back in the 80s, 90s. Yeah. So what did you see?
He had a relationship with Nobel forever, and then at some point they parted ways a little bit. I think Jack was trying to help GPs do implant technology and place implants, and Nobel still wanted to stay with basically oral surgeons.
Okay, but let's be honest. Let's go. You know, this is Dentistry Uncensored, where we call a spade. When Nobel started with that brand mark, when he came over to the United States, you could only go to his lecture if you're an oral surgeon. Mm-hmm. And it took 10 years to get the periodontist. Just like in California today, when I go to the endodontic Gary Carr TPO course, they won't even let me go into court. Me and DeTola snuck into his course, and that elitist guy figured out about 3:15 that me and DeTola were general dentists and kicked us out. Now it's just gross. I mean, it's elitist, and I just find it gross. Maybe if you're part of that club, but so it's an orthodontist. There's only one orthodontist that was taught at the University of California, San Francisco. Richard Litt taught the program there 10 years. Then he went over to Detroit, taught it there for another 10 years. He taught lowlifes like me and DeTola how to do orthodontics. So he's been blackballed from the entire orthodontic community. He's never published in their journals. He's never asked to lecture. And that's just kind of an old, ancient, gross tradition that's ugly and gross and needs to go away. Yeah. I mean, because I'm supposed to have one eye on the patient and one eye on cost. I'm not supposed to sit there and say, well, what will the periodontist think or the oral surgeons think? Or I mean, no. When my patient's in the chair and I'm working honestly with my hands, I'm only looking at the patient. I'm not looking at all these other tribes and nonsense.
One of my issues about oral surgery and periodontists is that they're really good in the areas they're at. What I mean is, if you got gum disease, you do it. The one thing most periodontists have never done is do restorative dentistry. And yet here they are placing implants in places where they've got solid bone. Well, how's that relate to the occlusion? And so we've always got people who want to control implants because they're looking for bone, and I'm looking for a finished restoration. My patient, or the patients we have, they want to know if they can get their teeth back again. And so when I started seeing these implants come out in different positions, I said, oh man, this is scary. And I didn't want to when I came back into the implant business, I just wanted to do what I call implant in a box. I want to send a surgical guide out with its own burr, the crown, you put everything in, boom, and it's in the exact right position. Not quite that simple, as I found out. But GPs know where the occlusion has to be. They should be allowed to place implants. Jack Hahn wanted to do that. And Jack is an amazing guy. And of course, Nobel just decided to go a little different way. So one day we were having lunch with Jack, and I said, did you ever want to do your own implant? And Jack said, well, sure, I would. I said, I've got all these engineers. Do what you want to do. It took them 9 months, I think, and they came up with this great system. And I thought, wow, I'm really, really impressed. And so I even put his name on it instead of putting my name on it.
And it's the most expensive implant sold today.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Well, yeah, no, not a bit. That was my deal.
Where is it on the price point?
It's like in the $140-$150 range. This is.
And what do you think the average is? Like, what do you think the average Nova Bio Care is?
Well, they have I can't speak to their pricing. I really don't know, but I know that if you're a big customer, you're probably going to get a special deal. If you're
What did you think of them spinning off Danaher? Here's 5% of the human body, and they spun off their whole dental division in Vista. And I lived through that rodeo twice, because when I got out of school, Sirona was part of Siemens,
Yeah.
which is like their Johnson & Johnson, Gillette, and somebody said we're overweighted in healthcare, and they spun off.
Yeah, don't you think that dentistry has always been difficult to manage? I mean, if you look at all the people coming here trying to make money out of this thing, even today, I mean, what did health, the big one that just sold for $2 billion, the DSO, health, what am I trying to say, in the middle of the country?
Heartland?
Heartland.
Heartland to KK&R?
That's great.
Yeah.
KK&R paid almost $2 billion for that, so now I hope they get a return on their investment.
And what was the debt rated as? Did you see that?
I did not see that, no.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. But I mean, I'm saying, this is difficult. I know big money comes into dentistry. I think that Danaher looked at what they had, I felt they overpaid for Nobel. I thought I'm not sure about it. They only paid 2.2. I shouldn't say that. But then they bought Implant Direct from Jerry Nisnik.
Oh my God, was that the highest?
$300 million for whatever. And Jerry, he was a great marketing guy. Let's give him that. But I mean, that was kind of crazy. As soon as I heard that number, I said, "What's Danaher?" They have a Danaher management program, which is actually the Toyota system, management system, and. But I don't know what their management system is, but they better learn how to spend money, and I think they overpaid for most of what they bought. I mean, but Nobel, you remember one time, had a market cap of $6 billion under, what was the lady's name that ran it? Heliana Canepa?
Oh, yeah.
Heliana Canepa, she added up to $6 billion. The board got rid of her, and they sold it for $2.2 billion. I don't know much about the stock market, but it didn't sound like a very good deal to me.
Did you know Brandmark's son? Brandmark was an orthopedic surgeon.
I didn't know that, no.
Yeah, so he, when he was doing the research, he couldn't do artificial. He didn't want to do artificial hips on mice.
Yeah.
So he just thought, you know what? I'm just gonna make a little peg and put it in the jaw. He was an orthopedic surgeon, so he was just doing it in mice and rats, and it worked, and it turned out to be implants. His son's an orthopedic surgeon in San Francisco.
My.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
no
it's
idea.
so neat how that so goes.
But I think one of the things you brought up before, you went over to Cologne and you saw 400 implant companies over there.
Yeah.
And yes, there's going to be a bailing out of it. But the interesting thing about it, most of them work. Most every one of those titanium pieces, you put it in the mouth, as Brandmark discovered when he put the little microscope on a rabbit's head, I think, and then found out, you can't get it off because it was titanium. It made out of titanium, and he says, what's this all about? Well, that discovery. But today, if you put a piece of titanium in the body, it just osseointegrates. You put a screw in your arm, it's going to osseointegrate. So of the 400 companies, some of them are probably financially on rocky ground and they won't survive. But when you look at, there'll probably be a good 15, 20 that specialize, and they'll be able to survive.
So she's 25. She just walked out of dental school. When they say they're $289,000 in student loan debt, that's a criminal number to say, because the people putting out that number is the what is it? The American Dental Education Association. So they're trying to downplay how expensive they are, because 20% of those kids didn't pay a dime, just like my kids didn't pay a dime for college. So that number's in the average. And then another big group of maybe 8 or 10% have some type of military aid, something like that. But when you look at the people that have to go in there, like I did, and borrow the whole damn thing, I mean, they're going to be coming out of school $400,000. It's $100,000 a year
easily, and you're being conservative.
Yeah. So
we have a young fellow here, $700,000 when he got out of school.
So that's my market. I'm trying to help that little girl from Kentucky.
I think some of the student debt, are people, when they get student debt, do they actually get rental? Can they actually borrow money for rent too, and living expenses and all that? So, yeah.
So she's 25. She's $500,000 in debt. She wants to learn to place implants. What advice would you give her?
Oh, I would.
What system? What training?
I would, for example, look, I'm not trying to be commercial, but we have a system, our Han implant system. We teach people right here how to place those, and we bring it around the country to different places, different hotels, whatnot. And we teach people how to place implants right now, and they Jack Han will get up there, or any number of people. It's like 5 or 6 beautiful, great guys that know their stuff.
Is that his hair or is that a wig?
That's his real hair. That's his real hair.
Oh my gosh! Don't cut that part out. As a bald man, I want everybody to know it's a wig. No,
I did,
good.
But you were a fire. You lost your hair in a fire, didn't you?
Yeah, on 9/11, I was a fireman. So where does she find out information? I like it.
Well, it's on our Glidewell website.
So just Glidewell.
Glidewell website. Type in Glidewell, go to our page, and then look under implants, and they list all the courses we put on every year.
Yeah.
And they learn how to do them. I mean, this is not hard anymore.
I want to podcast Jack on this.
Yeah.
Sometime when he's around, I'll fly down here, or if he's in Phoenix, or we can do it over Skype. But I've loved that guy for 30 years, and he's a working man's dentist.
Yeah.
And so
he's at an age now he should be totally retired, and yet we put him on the road. And he wants to go to South America, and then he wants to go here, and he won't come back for a week and a half or something. I said, "Come on, Jack." He's amazing. He's a workhorse. Recently, I saw a case he had done here, and there was 6 implants, and I was looking at those, and I said, "No, that's why we use surgical guides." And my guy looked at me and says, He freehands those things, and they were perfect. I said, "Oh my God!" And at his age, you'd think shaky hands or something.
Well, his
hands just go straight. I couldn't believe what he does. I can't believe it.
Let's be honest about surgical guides. When you look at the legends in implant dentistry, like Carl Misch, I mean, they all passed 10,000.
Yeah.
When they only had 2D panos.
Yeah, that's right.
And so what I can tell you, getting my fellowship in the missions to back when they didn't have CBCTs, is that you don't realize what is a crutch, because when you didn't have a pano, I mean, when all you had is a 2D, you put the head in a lap, you sat behind him at 12 o'clock, you took your finger and your thumb, you looked at that ridge.
Yes.
So now a lot of that surgical stuff is gone because they're looking at a computer screen. They got surgical. So necessity is the mother of invention.
Absolutely.
So when it was 2D panos, Jack, Carl Misch, I'm not in their league at all, but you could place the implant because you had to be a surgeon.
Yeah.
So you knew you were going to have to go in there and feel. You're going to have to lay a big flap. You're going to have to visually see it, and then you place a good implant.
Carl put one of his very last courses, if not his last course, on here at our GITSE, our Glidewell Training Center here in Newport Beach, and I was so pleased to have him. And we took him for a boat trip around the harbor and whatnot. And he didn't last much longer after that. But then Randy Resnick, what a set of hands he has. And he's taken over the Misch Institute. And I'll tell you what.
His little brother.
Yeah, Resnick he's the real deal. And
Randy Resnick's not his little
Randy
brother.
Resnick is, you're thinking of Carl's son.
Carl's brother.
Carl's brother, yeah.
Who's married to a dentist in Florida.
Yeah. But Randy runs the Institute now and has done an incredible job. And we still work very closely with them. And they used the Han implant, so that was quite a
so
for Jack Han.
So the Misch Institute's using the Han implant.
Yes,
and you're using the Han implant.
Yes, and we manufacture them right here. I'm going to show them to you today.
And exactly when you show them to me today, do you think you can get a cameraman to carry a handheld so we can continue this throughout the day on different locations? Could we do that?
Oh, absolutely.
That would be amazing. But I can't believe the hours passed, but I got what are you most passionate about today? I mean, you
it's funny.
Drive into work
we're a
because
dental, we're a
trying to
dental
pay
laboratory, and yet I'm this Glidewell IO thing we've done, which is this CAD/CAM chairside milling device, and you could use the iTero to drive CAD drive the digital file to the CAD program we have, and we use artificial intelligence to design this, and because we've done millions and millions of crowns that are in the cloud, we have a method of identifying what crown goes into that space. So the dentist doesn't have to sit down with a whole bunch of tools. I mean, if he has to make 15 keystrokes, I would be shocked. And some of them, he says, yeah, that's fine. It goes to the mill. 42 minutes later, the crown's going to go into the mouth. You're not firing it. You're not doing anything to that crown because it's fully centered zirconia. It's a Bruxer crown, and it really, really works. So I'm really excited about that because practices are, when I see patients, like I'm at the golf course or someplace where my buddies are at, they'll always tell me about some dentist that just put his crown in his mouth in an hour. And I thought, yeah, well, that's chairside milling and all that. We take it for granted, but that's what they tell their friends about. They leave that dental practice and they say, you know, I didn't have to wear a temporary and I didn't have to do this. And so they have a lot of respect for people who do that.
So explain, so you have glidewell.com, but you have glidewell.io.
Yeah.
So
well, glidewell.com is really the website for the company, and you know, but the
what's the IO?
IO is in office. That means Glidewell in office, and so you can buy these little slug that goes in there in different shades that you make a brush crown out of. They're like $35. You know, so you save 60% on lab fees by using it.
When Sirona, when Patterson started selling the Sirona CAD CAM, they were chairside milling, crowns in just about an hour, blah, 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 blah. Well, you got on Dental Town, and it's like 250,000 registered dentists on Dental Town, 70,000 downloaded the app, and no one knows of anybody who did it in 1 hour.
Nobody
and they're all like,
yeah,
dude,
that's
2 to 3 hours.
I'm going to say it's an hour.
What is the time down to?
I think it's an hour and 15 minutes maybe or something.
But
see, after you mill
that's
this crown,
amazing.
Well, you save the money.
Do you really think it's at an hour and 15 minutes?
Oh yeah, well,
as opposed to 3 hours.
Yeah, we do it here all the time.
Because if it really would have been an hour procedure, it would have taken off.
Yeah.
The problem is that it was taking 2.5, 3 hours.
Well, if you use Emax, then you're going to have to fire it to center it. So you've now milled it, then you got to take it out, you got to glaze it, you become a dental technician. We're saying you don't want to be a dental technician, you just want to take this crown out of there, snap it off that little bitty sprue, polish on that one area and put it in the mouth. The contacts, the occlusion, the margins are going to be there, and you don't need to. You can glaze it if you wanted to, but you really don't have to, and the surface is very, very smooth. You think there's going to be a bunch of milling marks on there.
So is it feldspathic?
No, this is Zirconia.
Your Bruxer?
This is my Bruxer solid Zirconia. Completely hard, it'll never break. It's the same things you see as pounding it.
And is it anterior or posterior or both?
Posterior, some anterior right now. By the end of the year, 2020, it'll be everywhere in the mouth. And 3 inner bridges too. But also, this system is total system, including a iTero scanners, less than 80,000, maybe 77,000, something like that, versus 140,000. So
you and I want to say another thing about Jim that totally impressed me. I've been lecturing to dentists for 32 years. I'm a dentist with my MBA, and you can never ever meet a dentist that knows any of their numbers. And from the time I met you 30 years ago, I mean, you wrote your own software so that like when I call your office, it would pull up my chart. They would know everything about my account. Yeah. Every time I've talked to you, you just know all your numbers. Where does that come from? Why do none of the dentists know their numbers? And why do you? Where did that?
Well, I think it's unfair to them a little bit because they're doing dentistry, and I'm really doing math most of the time. And I've always been math driven, whatever industry I'm playing with, whether it's golf even. I'm a mathematician on the golf course, not just keeping score. I mean, doing what we call critical incident analysis, which is CQI, and then we have CIA, which is CQI is really constant quality improvement, and CIA is critical incident analysis, where you take a whole bunch of numbers and you look for weaknesses. So we're always trying to eliminate weaknesses. And when we looked at our remake rates, let's say, oh, by the way, speaking of remake rates, I'm going to show you today selective laser centering of metal partial frames. Now, I'm not a partial technician. I was always a ceramist. But when we started putting in these SLS frames, we found out that half of all the remakes went away right away, just immediately. There's something about the way these things fit. Remember, errors stack up, I mentioned in the beginning. But when you make one of these things from a scan, we scan it and go directly to the design. And by the way, that happens to be a 3-shape design we're using. We don't write our own software for removables. But we can go in and make this SLS partial frame. It comes out and just drops on. most of the people you go to my framework, they go through different models, and then they have to wax it up, and they have to burn it out, and they have to cast it. And at the end, there's a bunch of guys sitting there grinding and grinding and grinding to make things fit. And if the model gets a little abraded, it's not going to fit in the mouth. With these SLS frames, and I'll show you some of those, they absolutely fit. We're shocked. And not that I like partials. I mean, people should be putting implants in the mouth and doing dentistry the right way. But there's a market out there where you have to.
So we've seen DSOs go from 0 to I'm in Arizona. It's the highest of any state. 18% of the dentists in Arizona work for a DSO.
Yeah.
So that's ground zero for DSOs. Next state over in Arizona. And if you want to be a private practicing dentist, you got to compete against DSOs. But what would you tell all the DSOs or the dentists competing against DSOs? What should they do to be more competitive? What would be their best?
I think they can offer
decision?
more services to the dentist operators that are running and owning those offices, and that the DSOs do a great job of running back office operations. I don't have a problem with DSOs at all. When they become too profit oriented, that's probably where I would say they need to back off of that. Let them use their laboratory they want, but at the same time, don't tie their earnings to saving too much money. I think there's a pressure point sometimes when a DSO says you've got to use this service and that service, and we negotiated a really good price, and it isn't always to the betterment of the patient.
Oh, you mean when DSOs are making their dentists use another lab?
Right, another lab or something,
And they should really stop doing that, because I can name names and examples where the CEO will tell you, I'll say, well, what's your biggest challenge? He says, dentist turnover or employee turnover. And I'll say, okay, well, here's a huge reason they quit, because you made them use that lab.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get two dentists to agree that it's Tuesday, let alone agree on the same lab.
Glidewell is a great lab. We're the biggest in the world of 40,000 labs worldwide. Yeah. So that's a kudo to us. But there's a lot
40,000 labs worldwide.
Yeah. There's a good 8,000 in the United States.
But when I got out of school, there was 15,000.
That's right, 15, 17,000. That's right. Today there's only 8 left.
Why did it go from 15,000?
Well, the productivity per laboratory went up. I mean, our people now double the production because of automation. So automation is really affecting us. We're milling crowns today. We didn't used to it. But there's still a lot of dental labs in this country that are really good. On my hat, I run into some guys, and I'm just like shocked at some of the work they can do. We've got some people here too that can walk on water practically, and they're really good. But I've also seen some dental labs out there that deserve all the money they make. I know our prices are not, we're like $99 for a crown. And when you look at what we get out of $99, we have enough left over to fund all this research, all this development, hundreds and hundreds of people who just work on product development alone. And, but the average dental lab is so small, they need about a 20% bottom line just so they can pay their bills and afford their house payment. You take something like what I have here, I can live on 2% because it's so big. So the rest of it goes into R&D and making careers for my employees even bigger. It's a huge advantage when you get really large and you only have one stockholder.
Why don't we grab a camera, and what are you going to show us?
Well, you betcha. We're going to show you implant manufacturing. We'll show you how we manufacture milling centers. We'll show you an automated Bruxer machining center, which can produce like 2,200 cases a day perfectly. And I'll show you selective laser centering of partials.
Okay, and you know what I want you to show me?
What's that?
I love America. I love an American story. You're a rags to Kentucky to riches. I mean, you're the American dream. And I got, my 4 boys have made me 5 grandkids. Yeah. And little Gunnar and Mason are only 1 and 2, and Raya's 3, and they need to see these American stories. It reminds me that movie, The People versus Larry Flint. I don't care if you like the guy or don't like the guy. Sure, that's an American story. And you know what he did? He got who's the guy from Friends, Woody Harrelson. Yeah. And he made a movie, and I loved it because it was it was about free speech. I mean, it finally got to the greatest scene was when it got to the Supreme Court. He says, when George Washington was president, there was a picture of him walking to the White House with a donkey, and the caption said, "The ass returns to."
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't care if you like it or don't like it. That's freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And I think that you have got, you're up the street from Hollywood. This is an American movie. I mean, there are 5,000 movies on Netflix, and I don't want my grandkids watching half of them because they're just noise and junk and entertainment. But this is an American classic
It's
legend story.
but
But I know guys like you.
Yeah.
They're always shy. They fly below the radar. They don't make amends. But you gotta get out there and dance for the grandchildren.
Yeah. Well, I have all the houses and the jet airplanes and the big yachts and all that. And
But where's the movie? Where's the movie for the grandkids?
It's me coming to work every day. These guys will tell you, I walk in here every day at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I have a hard time using all these toys I have because when I come here, I'm the happiest. I go on vacation like the Bahamas or something on a big boat, and I can't wait to get back to work.
So what's the name of this movie going to be? The People versus Larry Flint? Was it going to be The Dentist versus Jim Glidewell?
No exit plan. So it's going to go.
But I really want you to consider it.
Yeah, well,
because,
thank you very much.
When we were little, they always said, you should read more. And you'd read, but it was all words, no pictures. Then you look at your 3-year-old grandkid, and she's watching a YouTube video because it's video, it's sound, it's great. And they, of course, they're going to like YouTube better than the TV, because when we grew up, we had 3 channels on TV. Now they got 1 million on YouTube.
I think what amazes me today, too, is that you and I were raised in a time when we learned by the written word, I mean, television was barely coming in when I was a child, And today, these kids, we say there's something wrong with these phones, what they're watching the telephone all the time. They're always on their texting or doing something. But I wonder that the human brain has never been stretched to full capacity. We don't have that much information. I think today these kids are getting smarter and smarter because of these cell phones. We all carry around our Apple phone, and I believe that they're just, by the way, I have young children too, 10, 12, 14, and 16, my children are. And they're on these phones all the time. My wife doesn't like it. She thinks there's something bad going on there. And I understand, because we don't know the ramifications just right now. We will say 20 years from now, we're going to say, oh, we just kill off the brain cells with these machines. I don't think so. I think our kids are smarter than we ever were. When I think how I was at 14 years of age or 16, I knew nothing, compared to what my 14-year-old and my 16-year-old know today. So I think we're in good hands.
Well,
I want to compliment you, by the way, before we're off. You've done so much through your dental town to create a dialogue all the time, to keep it going. And you're not a vendor. You're not selling anything. Because most of the time, even when I'm in front of a camera, I'm almost a lot of times selling something. You're not selling anything. And I'm trying to come across, I'm not selling anything either, except make dentistry better, make it more affordable, take care of more people. That's what we want to do, and that's what you're trying to do too.
Yes, and just like Facebook and Google only have one business model, they sell ads. And do you know who our largest advertiser has been?
Who's that?
Since we've started Dental Town in 1998.
Really?
You have.
Oh, well.
So everybody who has the 70,000 dentists with the Dental Town app on their phone, this is the guy who is paid for you to do that, and this is the guy that's been paying for that bill, and I sincerely appreciate that.
Okay.
But one last thing about that that young dentist, because I believe the only value of knowledge is if it's transferable, and if you take it to the grave with you, it's nothing. But what I'm most excited about, your 4 kids, your wife's concerned that they're on the smartphone too much, and at Christmas, I watched all the grandkids, and they just, in fact, I got to tell you the silliest thing I ever saw in my life. Mason, it was time to eat, and he was on this thing, and his mom said, come to dinner. So I came over there, and I took his arm. I lifted him off the ground, and he was still holding it, and I'm like, holy moly. But what the way I see this from a guy in your backyard, Steve Jobs, is that for the 5,000 years of recorded history, it was a game that was played at the top in government, religion, business, and it was all played down at the individual. And then in 2007, this guy, this natural sapient intelligence, with his opposing thumb, looking at this artificial augmented intelligence with a computer in everyone's hand stronger than what Neil Armstrong had on the moon.
Right. Yeah.
And this is the rise of the individual. It started in 2007. I know there were smartphones before that, but Jobs is what made it roll out.
Yeah.
And 2007, now it's 2020. It's been 13 years. And I think this is going to reestablish an equilibrium between the individual and the top. And you're already seeing it where, access to information. I remember when I was born in 62, when I was 10 at 72, Mom bought some encyclopedias at a garage sale that were printed in 52. And now our grandchildren have 75 million pages on Wikipedia updated daily. So I think this is going to be the greatest single invention ever made for the individual.
Totally agree. Yeah.
And it's going to restore the individual to his rightful place in society and not just be a victim of the top-down command and control top.
You bet.
So thank you for supporting Dental Town since 1998. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
And you've always been an idol of mine. And you're the first person I asked to podcast. I had to do Datola because you wouldn't do it. So he was the first one I podcasted. And the only reason I called him is because I was calling for you and I only got him. But 4 years later, you finally showed up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Because of the way we do things here, as you can see, it's completely different than any other lab you'd ever walk into. It's all automated. It's got conveyors here that move cases.
Now, how many cases will come in on an average day?
Oh, probably between all the buildings, 15,000 maybe.
15,000 packages a day.
Yeah, that's right.
So are you FedEx's best friend? Is that who this mostly comes to?
Did
FedEx?
over $1 million a week at Federal Express.
You spend $1 million a week with FedEx?
Yeah, with FedEx. Yeah. Almost everything you see here is going to be our software. And that's one of the big things that's allowed us to grow. How do you control this many cases coming through a place? It looks like chaos. Completely organized. Completely organized. And I have very good people to do that. They don't rely on me for that.
How many employees do you have all here?
5,000.
5,000.
5,000. This here is we're standing on the back of it maybe? Yeah. It's going to make a difference, got a front and back. Remember that big machine I showed you earlier, that $375,000 machine? This replaces that, and it's faster. This here is a computer tomography unit, big X-ray device, and it's going to shoot through there and scan that silicone impression.
What is that?
That's a PVS scan.
Can I move it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's an impression.
Just an impression.
So let me tell you
So I go directly from this to CAD to the machine. No plaster work, no pouring models, no die trimming. See material.
Okay, so you make 90,000 crowns a month, a week, and track all your remakes. And what the young kids are trying to figure out when they get out of dental school is when do they need to switch from a quadrant tray to full upper and lower trays mounted on an articulator?
Yeah, just to make sure that sometimes your occlusion will give you enough to interdigitate those things so that they know where the centric is. But sometimes you're missing teeth and they're floating around. And the subconscious in a person's mind, they know where their centric is, even though they have very few teeth in their mouth. But once you take them out, you don't have a subconscious to put those two pieces together. So then you need a full arch tray.
So when can you do quadrant and when can you do full edge? What would be the...
I would do quadrant for anything. I wouldn't do a quadrant on a 3-unit bridge.
So a 3-unit bridge.
I would still try to do a full mouth impression on a 3-unit bridge most of the time.
Well, what if it was just 2 molar, the first and second molar, and there was no wisdom tooth?
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that. It was on a quadrant.
You'd still do a quadrant on that?
Yeah, as long as they got the 2 buys in occlusion.
Again, I'm trying to help. Knowledge has no value if we can't transfer it to the kids. She's 25. Would you for faster, easier, higher quality, lower cost, better quality, should she start with an impression material or a scanner?
You've got to have impression material because you can't scan everything. You're going to come across cases that scanning will not work, especially if you got a lot of tissue in there. Remember I said if you have a lot of tissue to remove, you got to go in there and burn tissue, and that's not what you really want to try to do. But then silicone impression material will go in every little sulcus. You can't keep it out. Just pull it out and there you got it. Yeah. So this, if you can see all the little blocks over there, they are different shades. So all those racks of zirconia. Those are Bruxer blocks. So then these racks will take them out, they'll pull them out, and then this little device will pick them up. It'll go down through, and remember that machines I told you about that were, we're making these industrial milling machines? That's what this is. This is industrial milling machines.
Wow.
So they're very much kind of like the ones you use in your office for a chair side, but that's what this is doing. So it's going to mill those, and that robot comes through here, picks them up, and this can do 2,200 units a day. This machine here will do 2,200 crowns a day.
This area right here does 2,200 crowns a day.
2,200 crowns a day.
So back when you started, how many people would you have needed to do 2,200 crowns a day when you were waxing it up and casting them?
500.
500.
I would think so, about right.
So this is a 500-person lab.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Never calls in sick.
And does it go 24 hours a day?
Yeah, you'd run this 24 hours a day. This would be lights out. You can turn it on at the weekend and keep it running. Well, what's happening here is by doing all this automation and thinking, two things happen. We get a predictable product all the time. So we're getting a reproducible product. Whereas if a technician made these, he's like a Michelangelo and he wants to put a few changes onto this. Not only is a technician very expensive, but he is wanting to put his own stamp of approval on this product here. I make this blank. I make the blanks myself from powder.
And that's solid zirconia.
Solid zirconia.
Bruxer
zirconia. And then I make these pellets too here that hold it on there so that it can go in and be held by the machine when it's being milled.
And these are just for bridges?
The long ones are for bridges. The short ones these are the short ones.
But Jim,
see how short these are?
Yeah, but I want you to answer an economic question because this argument keeps replacing itself when the textile mills came out. It caused a lot of unemployment.
Yeah.
India canceled, back when I was in college, they canceled a bunch of equipment from John Deere because of unemployment. So Milton Friedman went over there and he said, what's the deal? And he says, well, I don't want to get a tractor when I have all these people that can do the job by hand. And Milton Friedman said, well, then take away their shovels and give them spoons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something smaller, move the dirt.
But
here's the deal.
Increases productivity, but it replaces 500. So
automation
is that good or bad?
displaces people. And we've become extremely automated over the past few years. And we've grown from 2,000 employees to 5,000 employees. Okay, so you repurpose your people. You have them doing jobs that are not just make work jobs, and they actually even make more money. So my
How
average.
come you don't go back to waxing up the crowns while they're blindfolded?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that create more jobs?
You'd create a lot of jobs. We can do that, and that's good input. We're going to use that. When the units come out, they go through a system here, and when they come out at the very end, they'll be placed in the little boxes like this here. So that's the anteriors that come out. That's what they look like in their oversized shape. Those are 21% oversized. They look kind of large to you, right? So
Yeah.
that is a very large crown. But that's 21% oversized.
Bruxer.
And when it goes through the machine, this is not solid zirconia yet. This is just a porous powder. And so it has to be shrunk down 21% to be the accurate size.
So then what's different in chairside milling Bruxer to do the whole thing in an hour and 15 minutes?
Well, to mill, I can mill this crown here in 12 minutes because it's 100 megapascal. But when it's solid state zirconia, it's 1200 megapascal. So you have to use diamonds on it, you cut it slowly. And on some really small crowns, you can probably do them in 36, 38 minutes. But the bigger ones take 42 minutes. But remember that after 42 minutes, you don't do absolutely anything. You go directly into the mouth.
And you would rather do this than invest $5 in Smiles Direct Club stock?
Yeah, I don't buy stock. I don't know any stock at all, by the way. I don't know any stock.
Do you see yourself ever doing an IPO for?
No, I really don't, because then that changes. I would become obligated to the stockholders at that point, and that would restrict how I make decisions. Because I would never want to risk. I'll take risk with my own money, but I don't want to take risk with their money. So this thing here, just see this here, is popping boxes out like that. So the crown goes in here, an invoice goes with it, then this goes into an envelope, and it gets shipped out to a dentist with no models, and it costs us very little money to ship this because it's in an envelope now. So that's to cut down the shipping costs and all that.
And how many of these do you make a day?
Oh, we make about 1,000.
1,000?
Yeah.
And that's strictly
Very
for,
cool.
he's going to be doing that's strictly for non-model, like Itero cases coming in. So I'm 1,000 a day. These things here are what's called EDM machines, electron depth machines. They'll make super fine cuts into metal and all that. So we make parts here that you just can't make any other way. And I tell you the truth, I don't know what all these parts are, but if they want to drill a hole in something really finite, or like this kind of a milling in here, these guys will burn things in, and these two machines are called EDM machines. And they do things you can't do with a regular rotary mill.
So what do they all make in here? Is this all removable?
This is removable over here, and the Itero stuff is all that in down there.
And when you say Itero, that's just Itero
incoming
scans for crown and bridge.
I got scans.
Not clear aligners.
Right, no clear aligners. We don't make any clear aligners right at this time. Remember I said those machines that the partials really fit? Watch this laser burning here. So that's powdered metal, and it's burning on top of the old metal. It's got some parts underneath it. It's adding metal on top of it. Now the table's gonna drop 20 micron, and a blade's gonna go across it and pull powder in front of it. Okay, and then, so it'll be there in a second. And it's making,
So that's laser cutting depth into it.
yeah, they're melting on top. There's 20 micron of metal being melted on top of that piece. Okay.
And the powder is in the air?
Yeah, right. Now watch the wipe. You see the blade? Now watch it come across the top. You're looking at the top of the frames right there. Now you'll notice the frames are going to disappear. They just put 20 micron. The table just dropped 20 micron. Now the laser's on. It's going to make another pass. So it's building up metal 20 microns at a time. If you can see these, that's what they look like when they're being built up.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that amazing?
And then what? And then what's the next step?
Well, they'll cut them off, and they look hard to get off. They're not. They clean up in a hurry, and cut off all those support legs underneath it, and they just kind of almost peel off. But then you end up with a frame that looks just kind of like that.
Wow. And this is going to be for a removable partial?
Yes, a removable partial, and it fits like crazy.
And what is the average cost of a removable partial these days?
I think they're $2.50, maybe $250,
$250.
Got to have the teeth on and all that. You know,
So
kind of a pain to make.
Would you say this extinct the cast partial
This
framework
isn't, no,
where
but
you
this
wax
isn't,
it up
yeah,
and
exactly.
take it off and
yeah.
cast it and try
In
it back
fact, I have this view of it. I believe that to make a frame any other way than this method is, I can't do it anymore. Ethically, I can't do it because I know I'm sending out something that's wrong. We had to look at our remakes, and we said, wait a second, a cast partial has twice as many remakes as a metal-centered partial. How could I ever send another cast partial out the door knowing that the dentist and the patient have to suffer with that? I can't do it. Well, you look at, this is the future right here. This is one of the big things that's changing dental technology, and it's called SLS, or selective laser centering. So that's what, and it'll make any parts. You could make copings, anything metal it could make. It really could, by the way, it could print implants. Instead of having to mill all implants, but fairly easy to mill implants, but you could print them. And they would drill them out, yeah. These will cut zirconia, And so that's what I make. I make these myself.
So you make your own zirconia?
Yeah, like I'll make these things for $4, so I have to pay like $14.
And and what is that made out of? Titanium?
No, this is carbide, but the steel. Carbide steel, yeah. This whole area here, this is a training center. This here is where I send people come in here to learn how to do run the software, and she's learning over there how to make models and all that. So this is strictly a learning center. So we do all our own training. We don't look for anybody that knows anything. We only train. If they come here with experience, we don't care. We have to unlearn them almost, you know. So that's what this is, though.
So this is when you hire someone to work in the lab, this is where they go to school.
This is where they would go to school.
You train them. And how long will they be here? How long is this?
They'll probably be in here for 6 weeks. I would think people staying here about 6 weeks. We're designing, in a new building, we're designing a restaurant. So these are renderings of a restaurant we're building over in one of the high rises over here. And it'll be built soon. We're building that out. But we do all of our own interior design right here.
So you're building your own restaurant?
We build everything ourselves. We do it all. We do our own
drywall. Is this for employees, or is this a commercial?
This is a commercial thing, but it's mainly for the one building over there where there's a lot of tenants in it.
But it's going to try to be a free, a new business?
It won't be free, but it's not
business?
A for-profit business. I don't do for-profit stuff, really. But it would be a big bonus for the people in the building who don't have a restaurant right now, and they don't have to go out somewhere at lunchtime, you know. So we try to make it convenient for them, and if they like it enough, then next time they up the rent, maybe they'll pay a little bit more on the rental too.
So you're building out the stuff for a laboratory?
All my laboratory, everything's built right here.
And how many laboratories do you have around?
Costa Rica, well, 30-ish.
30 labs?
But remember, 85% of all my business is done right here in this area.
Right.
But so these are automated CNC machines too. When they cut something and you go to put it together, put the glue on it, it fits. You don't even, there's no adjusting, no tapping. You just put the glue on it and it goes. It's that amazing. And so this is the wood shop. There's like 15 people work full time here doing nothing but making cabinets for the company.